Welcome to the Sober and Happy podcast, where we talk about all things recovery related, how to navigate the challenges that we'll face along the way on our journey towards our best lives, and how we can go from living a life of simply just being sober to a life where we're both sober and happy. Today we're tackling a topic inspired by a question I recently posted in our Facebook community. What was the biggest obstacle between wanting to get sober and actually getting sober? The responses were honest, raw, and incredibly relatable. If you're struggling to take that leap into sobriety, know that you're not alone. Many of us have faced these challenges, and today I want to talk about the 5 biggest obstacles people mentioned and how we could overcome them. And to be honest, I was surprised at what came in at number 1, so make sure you listen till the end. So buckle up, this is going to be a great episode. Welcome back. Today we're diving into something that many of us have faced or are still navigating. The obstacles that stand between wanting to get sober and actually taking that leap. Whether you've tried to quit in the past or are just beginning to think about it, you've probably felt the weight of fear, uncertainty, or even doubt. The path to sobriety is often full of hurdles that can feel overwhelming, but here's the thing, those hurdles can be overcome. In fact, by understanding and addressing them, you could turn those obstacles into stepping stones. In this episode, we'll explore 5 of the most common challenges people face when getting sober and discuss practical ways to overcome them. So let's get to it. Coming in at number 5 on our list is a lack of willingness. Several people mentioned this obstacle, with the most common responses being about either a lack of willingness to make necessary changes or to take suggestions from others. This could also show up as resistance to giving up old habits or environments, or even the belief that we already know what's best for us. Let me share a quick story. In my early attempts to get sober, I was absolutely unwilling to change my routine. I still went to the same bars, still hung out with the same drinking buddies, and I expected that sheer willpower would keep me sober. Spoiler alert, it didn't. Willingness is about recognizing that our old ways of living no longer serve us. Imagine you're driving to a new destination but refuse to use GPS. You might take wrong turns, get stuck in traffic, or even end up back where you started. Willingness is like finally turning on that GPS. It guides you towards where you truly want to go. And willingness doesn't have to mean overhauling your entire life overnight. Start small. Ask yourself, what's one thing I could do differently today? Maybe it's skipping happy hour or saying yes to a suggestion from someone who's been where you are. Remember, willingness grows with action. The more steps you take, the easier it becomes to take the next one. Coming in at number 4 on our list was a fear of losing relationships, whether friendships, romantic partners, or even family members. When alcohol is the glue that holds those relationships together, getting sober could feel like pulling everything apart. And I've been there. By the end of my drinking, my entire life revolved around alcohol, so naturally, most of my relationships in my life had alcohol as the common bond. I remember worrying about whether my friends would still want to hang out if I wasn't drinking. What I discovered, though, was eye-opening. Some relationships naturally faded away because they were based solely on alcohol. But the more meaningful ones that had bonds outside of our shared addictions deepened and became more significant because I was finally showing up as my true self, and I became a better friend once I got sober. Here's the tough reality we have to sometimes face. If someone can't support your sobriety, it's worth asking whether that relationship is truly healthy. Genuine connections don't depend on your drinking to fit in. At the same time, you could actively build new supportive relationships. Join sober communities, find sober gatherings, or even reconnect with people from your life who align with your values. It's scary at first, but what you gain is so much better than what you lose. Coming in at number 3 was a variety of social and lifestyle concerns. This was a big one. Many people worry about boredom, isolation, or their social life once they get sober. Let's be honest, for a lot of us, alcohol was our go-to for unwinding, celebrating, or even just killing time. When you're used to alcohol being a part of nearly every social event or downtime activity, it's easy to fear what life might look like without it. But here's the truth. The sense of boredom or isolation isn't because sobriety is boring. It's because alcohol has acted as a placeholder for meaningful connection and genuine enjoyment. To say it bluntly, if you're living a life that needs alcohol to make it exciting, the issue isn't that sobriety is boring. It is that you are living a boring life. Sobriety isn't about taking something away, it's about making space for something better. Picture your social life as a garden. For years, alcohol was the only plant growing, a scraggly weed taking up all the space. When you remove it, the garden does feel empty at first, but as you start planting new seeds like hobbies, passions, and deeper connections, you'll see it bloom into something far more beautiful and rewarding than that single weed ever was. The key to breaking free from the fear of boredom or isolation in sobriety is to explore new activities, rediscover old passions, and connect with others in ways that don't revolve around drinking. You might find joy in creative pursuits, exercise, volunteering, or spending quality time with loved ones. It is also important to shift your mindset. Instead of focusing on what you're giving up, think about what you're gaining. You're gaining clarity, health, deeper connections, and the ability to be fully present in your life. Yes, creating new habits and redefining what fun looks like does take effort, but the rewards far outweigh the initial discomfort. Sobriety isn't the end of your social life. It's the beginning of a more genuine and enriching one. The key is to embrace the change with curiosity and an open heart and mind. Coming in at number 2 was the challenge of living without alcohol. This may seem similar to the last one, but this obstacle goes beyond social concerns. It's more about fear. The fear of facing emotions, stress, or even boredom without alcohol is a crutch. For many of us, alcohol wasn't just a drink. It was our coping mechanism. It was how we numbed the pain, avoided difficult situations, or filled the silence when life felt overwhelming. The thought of dealing with all of that head on can feel terrifying. But here's the thing. While alcohol may have dulled the edges temporarily, it also kept us stuck. Sobriety is not about just removing alcohol. It's about building the strength and tools to face life on life's terms and discovering that you are far more capable than you ever imagined. Facing life without alcohol is about learning new ways to cope with stress, emotions, and the unexpected. The truth is, those emotions, stress, fear, and sadness don't go away when you drink. They just get postponed. Sobriety teaches us how to address those feelings directly, and in doing so, we gain freedom from their grip. One of the most empowering things you could do in recovery is building a healthy coping mechanism toolkit. These might include journaling to process emotions, practicing mindfulness or meditation, engaging in physical activities, or seeking support from friends, therapy, or recovery groups. It's also about building trust in yourself. Alcohol may have convinced you that you couldn't handle life's challenges without it, but sobriety shows you otherwise. Each time you face a difficult moment and come out stronger, you reinforce that you are resilient, capable, and more powerful than you once believed. Sobriety isn't about avoiding fear. It's about walking through it and finding strength on the other side. And when you do, you'll realize that those things you once feared, emotions, stress, and boredom, are no matches for the person you're becoming. Now, on to the number 1 reason that people listed. And honestly, it was something that I completely forgot about, which is the fear of withdrawals and detox. It wasn't that I didn't have this fear. It was just that I haven't had to deal with this in over 13 years. But before I got sober, this was actually one of my biggest fears. In the last 3 years of my drinking, I drank every waking moment of my life. It is not an exaggeration to say that my blood alcohol level was likely over the legal limit for the majority of those 3 years. So I was very familiar with withdrawals as I experienced them almost every morning. So it was natural to think, if I'm shaking this bad from not drinking just while I was sleeping, what is it going to be like if I quit? So it is completely understandable that the physical and emotional challenges from withdrawal were another concern that people listed. Let's be real. Withdrawal can be uncomfortable and in some cases dangerous. And while that fear is valid, it's important to know that help is available. If you're a heavy drinker, consult with a medical professional before quitting. Detoxing under medical supervision ensures your safety and makes the process more manageable. And to be honest, having experienced a medical detox from alcohol the last time I got sober, it wasn't even as bad as some of the mornings I experienced while still drinking. Now, I know that is not the same for many other addictive substances, and many of those can be absolute torture to come off of. I will not insult anyone facing those withdrawals by minimizing their experience, but I want you to imagine a timeline of your life. If you look at the block of time for all the suffering that came from our addiction, it would take up years or even decades for most of us. If we were also to try to look for the weeks of the pain of withdrawals when getting sober, it would just be a speck on the timeline and likely not even visible. We're not avoiding pain by avoiding withdrawals. We're just extending the pain of addiction and delaying the part of our timeline that could be filled with a life free of addiction. That's why it's so important to shift the focus. Instead of fixating on the short-term discomfort of withdrawal, think of what comes after: the healing, the clarity, and the freedom. Once you're through the initial detox, you can start rebuilding your body and mind. Hydrate, eat nourishing foods, and prioritize rest. Each day that you stay sober, your body heals a little more and the fog starts to lift. That wraps up the top 5 list of the biggest obstacles people face when making the leap into sobriety, according to the members who responded to my question in our Facebook support group. These obstacles are real, but they're not impossible to overcome. Each challenge you face is an opportunity to grow, discover your resilience, and build a life that no longer needs escaping from. Here's my challenge for you this week. Take a moment to reflect on which obstacles resonate most with you. Write it down and brainstorm one small step you could take today to address it. Progress does not happen overnight, but it only happens if we decide to take action. So take action today. Thank you for listening to this episode, and I hope you're enjoying the podcast. Please do me a big favor and grab your phone and text one person who you think might benefit from listening to this podcast. That would mean the world to me. New episodes come out each Friday, so I look forward to connecting with you next week. And as always, thank you so much for listening. Keep living sober and happy.